MTN SME Hub. Link to growth. Link to success. Link to the ultimate resource for business advice and insights.
Welcome back to the Big Small Business Show. In studio with us today, we've got Neo Khalo. He's the Managing Director and founder of KHL Automotive. And the question today is really about more customers. We're talking about scale, but really scale comes with customers. So I've got a whole bunch of pointers just based on our questions that I'd like to put forward to you to think about. You know, to me, when I watched the insert and having the conversation with you, I was pleasantly surprised because I was worried about your relationship. When I spoke about your relationship with rejection, it's also the other side of that coin is a relationship with sales, right? And the question that I asked is, in those 5 or 6 years, why didn't you get another client? And I get that clients can be all-encompassing and demanding, but the question is, why didn't you get 2, 3, 4 clients, and then that wouldn't have been so impactful. So the first point I want to make is that you are the primary salesperson. You must always be the primary salesperson. Today, 25 years into Raiz Corp, I am the primary salesperson. I'm not the biggest salesperson, but if somebody in the organization leaves in the sales department, I can step in at any time. And I've never, ever taken my role as a primary salesperson away from beginning of Raiz Corp till now. When you see yourself as the primary salesperson and you're not outsourcing it to anyone, those other people support you, build a sales team, but you are numero uno in terms of sales. And that's the most important mindset to have, is that I am now that salesperson. When I asked the question around, so why aren't you selling? It needs to be this obsession around reading, around selling, and watching YouTube videos around selling, going on sales courses. There needs to become an obsession around that sales function. Very early on in my career before Raiz Corp, I went on course after course after course to understand the process of selling. It's not just, hey, do you want to buy this? There's a whole process. It's far more scientific than we think. And customer management is also more scientific than we think. So invest in yourself. I would say the first thing you do after listening to this is go sign up for a sales course, and definitely start watching at least a video a day. There's enough on YouTube that's free that you can just pick up things with a pen and paper and then try it and see what works for you. Because often, they'll say things, but it works in America, but it doesn't work here. But so those kinds of things. The next obsession that I'd like you to have is around your what makes you unique, the value to client. Because when I asked that question, you couldn't articulate that. And that's the problem with the sale, is that if you've got nothing, different to sell, it's very hard to sell. It's not impossible to sell, because often it might be that you're right place, right time. You're a nice guy. You look like somebody I can trust. But you've got to get a sense of what makes you unique. And if there isn't anything unique, then admit it and say, there's nothing special about this business. But now, from this day on, I will work to produce a product or a service or a combination of product and service that is unique. And that just requires this total commitment to finding that thing. That's an obsession with researching what the client needs, what isn't available, and finding those gaps, and then obviously trying to protect that product, because if it's engineering, it's going to be quite easy to copy once you've had. But perhaps it's just all you need is to get in the door, is to say, I've got this, they don't have this, and can I come speak to you about that? So your obsession now, after being obsessed with selling, is to have something to sell that is unique, not just something to sell.
Right.
Okay. Then for me, it's about building a sales process and very meticulously following that process, and not just following the process, but adapting that process. Because what you are trying to, if you're in the primary sales role, you're seeing yourself as the person who's developing the process. So we would reach out to a client with this kind of email, or we'd research them first on LinkedIn, and then we would do this, and then we would send a mailer, and then I would make a call, and you'd build that process out. Because what you're wanting to do is, from a scale perspective, you want to get somebody else to follow your process as well. So you want to go through that many, many times, see where it does and doesn't work, finesse that, because the first salesperson you bring in is going to tell you how difficult it is. and how hard it is to sell. And you need to be able to have the confidence to say, I know. But we've built a unique product and we follow this process, and there is a probability of making that sale. So carry on. And if you don't have what it takes, then there's the door. To build this or to find a CRM system, a customer relationship management system, there's a lot of free stuff that you can get right now. In a lot of the products have a free version, and I would highly recommend that if you haven't got that right now, to get onto a CRM system that is free for now, so there's no additional cost, because it's going to create the disciplines that you require and the thinking around sales. Because you can hear I'm getting you to now fall in love with selling.
Yes.
One obsession is that differentiated product, and the other is the whole space of selling. And so that you need the machinery to sell, which is you need the CRM process, you need the CRM, you need all the tools to be great at selling. It's not just about randomly, calling some people and praying, that you get through. Then I wrote this down, but you're already doing this, is to write down all your rejections and your objections, okay, and the reasons why. And then start to develop almost a library of responses to that. So that in that moment, there's two things that happened in that moment. If you anticipate an objection, you're too expensive, then in your sales process, you take that out of the process. You say, I'm more expensive than my competitors, and this is the reason why, okay, that I'm more competitive. So they're not going to use that as a rejection, because you already brought that in as I'm more expensive. But you come up with, and this is the reason why, overall, I'm not more expensive. I'm actually cheaper in the long run because of ABC. So you start to develop that response, and it also changes your pitch. So your pitch starts to, once you start understanding the rejection, your pitch shifts. And then that rejection or objection handling becomes part of the training to your salesperson. Because you'll say, these are the top 5 reasons why people will object or reject us. And this is how you mitigate each one of those. But you're teaching yourself the whole time about that. Then it's about setting sales targets for yourself. And to me, in all the businesses I've invested in and in my own journey, there's this whole thing about calling a certain amount of people a day and just trying to get a target of 1 meeting. You just call till you get 1 meeting. And what happens with me, because of my personality, is I'll get the 1 meeting. Okay, let me just do that again.
Yeah. So you go more than one.
More than one. You get 2, and then you get more confidence. And then when you got more confidence, you get a higher rate of getting the meetings. And you're not trying to sell your product. You're trying to sell the meeting. That's an important thing. You're not phoning to sell the product over the phone. You're trying to get the meeting. You're selling the meeting, not the product or the service. Right? That's what you're trying to get in front of them. Because if you're in front of them and you've got a compelling product that is differentiated, you've got a higher probability of selling. Next thing is to build the role description for your salesperson. Okay, so build out your role description, and once you've built out that role description, then you go and you have to take the risk of hiring your first salesperson. And that is a terrible, terrible experience, because you're probably going to be wrong. But you have to go there. You have to go there, because now you've got your process, your CRM system, you've got your rejection, you've built some training up, and now you start trying to get somebody else to sell. They will have a different technique. They might have a different approach. You will learn from them. Bring that in. You're trying to constantly build your sales capacity or capability in the business. So you're learning from them as well. If you get it wrong, which is probable, next salesperson, adapt the whole thing. Try again until you start to build. And just to end off, I started off by saying you have to be the primary salesperson. I end off with saying, never forget that you are the primary salesperson. Sales, differentiation, growth. I hope I've given you some things to think about, and I hope you've got some things to think about. And that's it for today's show. Do remember, if you think it, write it down. and make it a reality.
The Big Small Business Show, proudly sponsored by MTN Business.